Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry, where today we are reviewing a ship that I've been putting off for a long time, and for a very good reason. Because this is a supercruiser. No, it's not a battle cruiser. This is the Kronshtadt, a Soviet Tier 9 supercruiser. The Kronshtadt falls into the same category as ships like the Azuma or the Alaska. The general idea was, and the Soviets have been mucking about with many designs, but things tended to go a little bit wrong. Like, I don't know, Stalin having everybody shot, or Germany invading. Stuff like that generally put a dampener on Soviet ship construction. However, the Kronshtadt actually started to a very small degree, so they've laid these down, were the Project 69 cruisers. And the idea behind these things was to build something that could initially take on the Washington Treaty cruisers, so Baltimores and stuff like that. And as such was meant to be armed with 305mm main guns and supposed to be about twice the size of them. Then they learned about things like the Scharnhorst and figured, and the Dunkerque, and figured, oh dear, we're going to need to upgrade to something that can actually take those things on as well. And then they tried dropping some bombs on it and figured, oh dear, the minimal deck plating we've put on these actually doesn't hold up against armor-piercing bombs dropped from planes. We're going to need to up-armor the thing. And then the project grew. In the end, the 305mm guns weren't available because, again, Stalin had just everybody shot who knew how to build the darn things. And as such, since they were in sort of good terms, and I'm making big air quotes here, with the Germans at the time, they decided to ask if they could have a couple of 380mm guns. And the Germans said, sure, we've got some laying around anyway that we were meaning to stick on the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau, but it looks like we're not going to get around to that, so you can have them. But then, of course, before things eventuated in that direction, the Germans decided to just invade, and that put a very definite end to the whole thing. And by the time that was all over, nobody needed a Kronstadt-class supercruiser anymore. And they briefly considered converting it into an aircraft carrier, but they said, yeah, no, so let's just scrap it. So that would have been the Kronshtadt. Now, I'm a little bit miffed at wargaming here. Just purely from a historical perspective, because let's have a brief look and actually compare the Kronshtadt to some of her, well, I wouldn't call it contemporaries, but sort of ships with the same intent and at the same tier. We'll begin with the USS Alaska, which was a complete mess. That was actually constructed on the American side. Even though nobody actually eventually was sure why they did it, but at some point it just seemed easier to build it than not to. So let's have a brief look. First thing we notice is that the Kronshtadt does not get any radar, whereas the Alaska does. Other than that, they get a very similar layout with 3 precise aim 2 and with 2 defensive AA. The Kronshtadt is not very well armored. And this is where my first gripe comes up, because the original Kronshtadt design that we see with 305mm guns, with 150mm secondaries, and with would have had a relatively decent armor around her. We were talking about a 250mm main belt, and after they did the armor-piercing bomb testing, I think somewhere around 90mm deck in total. But we don't have that here. So, in fact, if we're having a very brief look at the CIC website, then we find that the Kronshtadt has a 155mm main belt, which for a cruiser is sort of okay-ish, but has a 35mm deck plating. That is even less than the original deck plating they deemed insufficient when they dropped the bombs on it. This thing has a deck plating that is... this thing has got about half the deck plating of a Seattle, and that's a light cruiser. a maneuverable light cruiser. The deck plating on the Kronshtadt is marginally better than the deck plating on the Neptune. Okay, it's twice the size, but still. You can full pen the deck plating on a Kronshtadt with pretty much most armor-piercing shells in the game. And that means, given the size of the darn thing, and that they have done her dirty in terms of armor, she is an absolute damage pinata for large caliber shells. But she kind of a little bit makes up for it with for a supercruiser, relatively decent turn time of just over 10 seconds, and compared to the 13 seconds on an Alaska. It's still a very big ship, and it's still a supercruiser, so you're not going to be dodging shells left, right, and center in this thing. But it mildly compensates for the hilariously inaccurate armor plating this thing carries. That said, we have guns on it, 305mm guns. Compared to the Alaska, they have a shorter range and a longer reload, but they in return hit a little bit harder. The turret traverse is absolutely abysmal. We do get a set of 152mm secondaries. The question is why? I mean, yes, I know why, because that's what she was historically designed for, but why would you need those secondaries on something that has armor that you can poke through if you wet your thumb and stick it into it? This is tissue paper armor. Regardless, they have a reasonable base range of just over 6 kilometers, and you get a set of 100mm auto secondaries, which, in combination with the fact that these are probably dual purpose given the time period that this would have actually been built, late 40s or something, or late war period, mid 40s, and with the defensive AA, probably might get you to think that this ship is very good at AA. It is not. In fact, it has a terrible AA. This ship, no AA. Plus, you've got a significantly higher surface detection than the Alaska. Now, the Alaska has been buffed a little bit in that regard. The Alaska used to be observable from low Earth orbit as one of the largest man-made objects ever created, but it's gotten a little better here. How about the Azuma then? Because that is the Japanese attempt at, heck, we need a thing that can deal with treaty cruisers, and we're not going to call it a battle cruiser, honestly. And unlike the Americans, the Japanese eventually went, nah, we're not building that thing. The Azuma does get the rapid reload, and obviously not an AA ship. The Azuma is equally terribly armored, but does get still a better maneuverability than the Kronshtadt. And the Azuma's 310mm, because the Japanese tend to cheat and throw an extra 5mm or 4 on things. Just so it's not cleanly convertible into inches, you know. It has significantly better HE shells and does lack the secondaries. But the Azuma, being a Japanese ship, has better AA than a Kronshtadt with active defensive AA, and a significantly better surface detection. So you're going to be starting to see why I wasn't particularly keen on reviewing the Kronshtadt, because I thought, it's another one of those bloody supercruisers. Why is that such a big problem? Well, because you're in something the size of a battleship, with the armor worse than some light cruisers at tier, and guns that don't have the range to compete with battleships, and a surface detection from the moon. You're a damage pinata. Any battleship worth their salt is going to look at this and going, Citadel crisis, here I come. And you think, oh, well, I have 40,000 here. Oh, no, I have 20,000 hit points. Oh, no, I'm dead. And that is certainly the experience in the Kronshtadt, but it also means that you have to completely stay at range in this ship. Now, before we go and see some action, let's go through the details of this thing. Well, the first good thing is that you can actually extend the range on these guns, and you bloody well should, because range is your only saving grace in this thing. You do not take the internal bulkhead upgrade. You do not have internal bulkheads, right? Imagine your internal bulkheads are about the thickness of your standard office paper. And then, aha, I'm going to increase that by sticking another office paper on it. When faced with shells of any caliber, this does not bode well, no matter how many office papers you put on it. So do take the range on that thing. You can get the historical camo with it, which gives you another 4% range, and 4% dispersion. So this is, for me, almost a must-have. If you're considering getting this ship, you absolutely have to consider investing the additional, whatever it costs, 5,000 to 6,000 gold for a historical camo on it, because you are going to need that range. Battle honor wise, she gives four pieces of titanium, which is always good to have. So that's effectively a free 4 pieces of titanium that comes with your purchase, which you can use towards buying things in the shipyard, which is not a bad thing. So just consider that as a slight bonus on things. Equipment wise, you unfortunately don't get the same artillery plotting room that only the Americans get, so we're going to have to content ourselves with main battery mod 3. You could argue, Terry, this thing has an absolutely hilariously bad turret traverse. Yeah, it does, and it's not worth doing anything about it, because if you find yourself in a position where you need to turn the ship in order to keep the turrets on target, you're not Kronstadting right. You need to stay at range with this thing. Main battery mod 3 is, especially with the historical camo, is where it's at, because this ship is relatively precise to begin with, and it all very nicely stacks with the historical camo and with everything else. And yes, despite the very, very bad base concealment, you absolutely positively want to sail this thing with concealment, because that makes it slightly better. So all in all, with that, we end up with something that has no armor, for a supercruiser, not a terrible maneuverability, and we get a 14-kilometer base range. Well, it is a 14-kilometer range on the main guns, with a terrible turret traverse. And we've got the concealment down to Alaska's base concealment before you slap anything on it, which is still not good, but it's still better than what you start out with. Now, I have obviously run 2 games as usual. One with okay, I'm just going to get myself a Kronshtadt and then use free things on it, versus I have thrown all the money I could possibly throw at it. We have, for obvious reasons, Makarov on the Kronshtadt. It's not worth going for the air defense expert, because you have no AA to speak of. It's also, for the same reason, not worth to go for the battlefield support. It's much better to use the torpedo alert, so you actually get increased forewarning. The things that are really, really good from Makarov for the Kronstadt is obviously the Marksman Plus and the APCS Plus. Adrenaline Rush, okay, you can take it. You can. I've taken it because it's a skill on Makarov. The problem is, if you're low health on a Kronstadt and you're getting shot at, you're mostly not surviving for an awful lot longer. And obviously the Horizontal Protection Expert Plus is completely meaningless, given that you have no deck plating to speak of. Regardless, the skill that I'm mostly after is the APCS Plus. So we're going to run 2 games. One with a level 9 commander without the APCS and just a regular commander, and with a regular camo, and one with premium consumables, Makarov, historical camo, and all the bells and whistles. In round 1, we're obviously in a tier 10 game. We are facing Audacious, Yamato and Kremlin, Smolensk, San Martin, and a Jutland in domination on neighbors. Yamato, Kremlin, yes, those are the sort of things that you got to be really, really careful about, because they can make a very, very brief and violent end of you. So, obviously not a ship in which you rush caps. However, it is a fire support ship, and there are islands, so you need to use them. So it'll all depend on... I have a Worcester here, who actually has AA. I have a Shimakaze here, who is sneaky. And we'll see where the carrier goes. But I don't want to be caught by the carrier out on my own, because my AA is dreadful. And I don't want to be shot at by the battleships. Everything else I can probably handle. Now, Shima is, by the looks of it, undecided if he's going A or B. Probably just keeping an eye on where the carrier is going as well. But it looks like he's going into A cap. So I am just sort of positioning in that corner here. And I'm going to stop. Okay, there's the San Martin. That is something that I need to shoot at. There's also a Botibuki, and there's something else because A is being capped. So there's a destroyer in A, San Martin out. Precise aim, yep, there's the Jutland. So we're already going to slow down, but so far nothing really spotted. And that, if you've watched it, that is what the Kronshtadt can do, because these guns hurt. Now you don't want to stop broadside on in front of a Kronshtadt. I can't push any further in because there's a Jutland out there. Yep, there he is. Worcester, would you mind? That is sort of your corner there, Jutland. But I am just going to get a couple of shots at the San Martin, and then I am going to wait and see where the Jutland torpedoes are going, while Worcester is busy. And Yamato has taken out the Smolensk. Well done, Yamato. Where are your torpedoes? There they are. Okay, no single fire torpedoes, and that means I am safe from backing behind the island here. Carrier is helping out, taking out the Botibuki, and we are controlling B cap. Shimakaze is heading south towards C, so he can deal with that. And that sounds like I don't have any battleships to deal with, which is an ideal situation. Now Worcester, there is a Jutland behind that island. You know that, right? Because you seem to be busy duking it out with the San Martin. That island there. Yep, there he is. That little bugger. Deal with that, please. Yeah, he smokes up. You've got radar. Could you radar in, please? Couple of blind shots at the San Martin. Worcester, radar, please? Maybe? No? Okay. I'll switch to the high explosive. Generally, a good assumption is that you're going to have to end up doing it yourself, because Worcester is trying to burn down the... No, he's firing at the Jutland now. Good, good. Okay, so we've sandwiched the Jutland. He's got a Worcester behind him who's HE spamming him, and he's got the carrier coming in who's missing. Well, he couldn't do anything, it's dive bombers, and I am chasing him from here, but I do have to be somewhat careful with torpedoes, because by now the Jutland is probably reloaded, so we're going to get one more salvo with the HE off at that thing, and then I'll switch back to the armor piercing, and we'll see what else we can get, because right now there's just the San Martin and the Jutland over here versus Worcester and myself. We're holding 2 of the capture circles. Monty takes out the Kremlin. That's 1 battleship down. Nice. San Martin, where exactly are you going? Are you planning to stay behind that island there? That's unfortunate. I would have loved if you came around the other side, because then I could have done something about it. Alright then, we'll get some shots off at the Jutland. This is not APCS, so we might be actually at this range, might be, if we can actually hit the bugger, might be getting full penetrations. San Martin is backing off behind the island now, which is unfortunate. Would have been a nice broadside, but yeah, no such luck. I'm going to try and get the rear turrets around and get a bit of damage in, but Shimakaze has now run into the Jutland, who's still trying to burn me down. I don't know where his torpedoes are. They should have been here by now, but oh, there they are. Hello, Mr. San Martin. That's what I've been waiting for, and that was disappointing. That could have been better. I'm still being HE spammed by the Jutland. If you're thinking, well, the San Martin is a light cruiser, you probably, and yes, the San Martin has torpedoes as well, that's why I'm already needing to rush here. He's probably not going to do an awful lot against you. Well, think again, because your armor plating is abysmal, and the San Martin has pretty good armor piercing. So if he was being serious about taking me on, I would probably lose a gunfight with the San Martin, even at especially at close range, because the armor piercing on that thing is pretty good if he gets, especially if he gets the combat instructions up. So 1 more salvo. Can we lob that? Yes, we can. And he survives by a sheer matter of luck. Shimakaze is destructing the Jutland. Worcester has managed to take down the San Martin. Back to the high explosive, and we can now deal with the Jutland. You've seen how much damage I've taken, right? And I haven't even been shot at by any battleships or anything like that. But now we have a Jutland. Jutland is smoking up. A couple of shots. If he's got torpedoes out against me, then so be it. But we've won the battle. He's the last ship alive. He has fluffed his torpedoes. And maybe I can get the kill on the Jutland. Precise aim up. Shots out. Both the main guns and the secondaries. And there we go. We get the Jutland for our troubles. And we have done reasonably okay, given that it was a tier 10 game and we've mostly been just jockeying for position. but it shows that it shows the relative weakness of the Kronshtadt, really, because while you have a lot of very good guns and they hit reasonably hard, even if you're fighting cruisers, you have to be very, very careful with the incoming fire and manage your health. Which brings us to the second round, which is a nice round because, well, for two reasons. Well, for one reason, because there are a lot of cruisers in there. There is Midway, not happy, Yamato, trouble, Minotaur, Smolensk, San Martin, food, Z-52 and Friesland, problem. So at least we've got, 3 out of 7 ships that we can actually do something about is not bad. But the other problem that we have is that it's epicenter on chain. And you're in a Kronshtadt, and epicenter is not something that Kronshtadt very much likes. So it'll come down to the team. And this is the general weakness of supercruisers. In order for them to be successful, the team has to play their part. Because you can't. Because you have a very, very narrow focus. And that relatively narrow focus is to dealing with enemy cruisers. Now, the Kronshtadt has 305mm guns. And they are good guns. And they can do damage to a battleship. The problem is, you can shave maybe 7% of a battleship's health off in one salvo, and they can shave 50% of yours. And your reload is not that much faster. So it all comes down to giving the enemy team someone else to shoot at, and that's where the friendly team comes in. So the first things first, don't be tempted to rush into a carrier strike. Terry, I hear you say you are rushing into a carrier strike. No, I'm not. There's a Jinan over there. That thing's got AA. And I'm just going to add my AA to the bubble. And to be fair, I can probably tank the carrier better than the Jinan can, if it comes to that. Sorry, Jinan. I'm just going to try and shield you from the torpedo strike. And that means I'm going to take 1-2 torpedoes, but they're airdrop torpedoes. It's not too bad. So we have not shot any planes down, but I think the carrier strike has been generally defeated, so we've helped at least. But now I'm going to work my way over to the other side. There is a Z-52. This is with Makarov and APCS Plus, so I am expecting over penetrations. But at 10 kilometers, you can get some full pens, and those hurt. Battleship, not my favorite, and I am obviously spotted. But I'm going to try and work my way around the right flank here, and get to that little island, and try to get undetected. But oh, Smolensk! Okay, yeah, Yamato is shooting at me, but he's shooting high explosive. I'm not sure why, but he is shooting high explosive at me, and he has completely missed because I've slowed down, actually. So that way, and San Martin sits there fully broadside on to a Kronshtadt with APCS Plus and Makarov. Now that should hurt, and it didn't. That's a bit unfortunate. But the bonus is we get to try that again. So second salvo out, and this is the precise aim is no longer active, so we're not going to do an awful lot. Yep, and that's better. No citadels so far, but we can try again. And the San Martin is still giving full broadside. He is reversing a slight little bit, trying to get into that smoke screen there. And the friendly Schlieffen is, there we go, that's what we've been looking for. The friendly Schlieffen is starting to play things right and actually go and chase that flank down, which I am very much in favor of. So given that Schlieffen is pushing, and I'm not being targeted by anything, and I have a broadsiding San Martin to shoot at, this is as ideal a situation as it gets. Now there's Smolensk, but I am trying to finish off the San Martin if I can, and Smolensk is behind, so I wouldn't get a lock on. But yep, there we go. See, this is what you're meant to do. Unfortunately, it also requires the enemy team to do, well, to let you do that. Now, Yamato. Yamato, let's see what we can do against that. And we have a midway to shoot at as well. Yamato now shoots at the Schlieffen, which again is ideal, because that's what the friendly team is for. It's to give the enemy team something else to shoot at. Shots out at the Yamato, 2 hits on the belt, they bounced. And that is the problem with the 305 mils, because they just don't have enough penetration. Schlieffen is going Leroy Jenkins. And to be fair, he should, because we're holding all 3 capture circles. There's only a Friesland left over there. And the enemy team is basically boxed out of the capture circle at this point. Now Schlieffen is going to die, but he might get the torpedoes away at the midway, so a couple more shots out, and then I'm stop shooting at the midway because, yeah, Schlieffen is going to torpedo him and going to take him down. Friesland takes him out, but I have a Minotaur to shoot at, full broadside, 9 kilometers. Minotaur has torpedoes, so we do have to be a bit careful. Minotaur, however, is very squishy, so Minotaur smokes up, as he should. And now Smolensk is coming into play as well. Smolensk is also very squishy, so shots out from that. And with Smolensk, Friesland and Minotaur shooting at me, obviously I am burning and losing health rather rapidly. The rest of my team still undecided, and it's like, okay, the Schlieffen didn't end up too well for the Schlieffen. Let's see what how well the Kronshtadt is going to fare, but I have the island here that I can use to at least save myself a little bit. However, there's Yamato, and Yamato is looking at me, so I'm dead. But I might as well do as much damage as I can. Let's see if I can take the Smolensk down with me. Come on, turrets, turn. Precise aim up, shots out at the Smolensk, and Yamato blubs me in the side. I think that was even high explosive. Unfortunately, despite the fact that I got a citadel, I am not getting the Smolensk, but, we've had some fun, we've done some damage. And while we're watching the rest of my team finally kind of joining in on the action, is the Kronshtadt a good ship? No, it isn't. It suffers from the general problem that you have in supercruisers, and that is you are a very squishy ship that doesn't have the range to duke it out with battleships on equal terms. And the Kronshtadt is very good if left to her own devices, but then so is every other ship out there. You can have great games in the Kronshtadt. If battleships start shooting at you, you are very much not gonna have an awful lot of fun. If the carrier starts focusing you, you are not gonna have an awful lot of fun. So the key to playing a Kronshtadt successfully is to keep a very, very close eye at what your team is doing, and make sure that you're not. Make sure that the enemy team always has somebody else to shoot at. So it's really key. The positioning is key. The guns are not bad, honestly, and you can do some serious damage with this thing against enemy light cruisers if they're broadsiding and not actively trying to avoid you. You could get yourself an Alaska. By now it has better concealment. The guns are pretty much on par. It's got significantly better AA and more utility. You could get yourself an Azuma. Or if you're so inclined, you could get yourself a Kronshtadt. Just be aware of the shortcomings that these kind of ships have. And especially the Kronshtadt, for me, doesn't really stand out with anything particularly. It really, really depends on positioning and also on the friendly team to do what they need to do, like that Schlieffen push, right? Without that Schlieffen push, I could have never managed to get more than 50,000 points of damage. Without the enemy light cruiser sitting still, fully broadside on at 9 kilometers from a supercruiser, I could have never amassed 90,000 points of damage. So the stars kind of have to align for you to get a good Kronshtadt game, is what I'm saying. And that's it for me today. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.